Are you about to spend $15,000 or $25,000 on a motorcycle based mostly on a badge you've been told to trust? Because some of the most respected names in this industry are quietly running the worst ownership math you've ever seen. And a few brands most riders wouldn't even consider are delivering something nobody talks about, an ownership experience that actually holds together for years. 5 brands are robbing you right now. 3 are genuinely worth your money. One entry on the worth it side will make you angry. One specific number on the robbing side, a brand you probably consider the serious, grown-up choice, is going to change how you think about what premium actually means. Let's get into it. Number 5, Harley-Davidson. I know, you saw that coming. So let me tell you what you probably didn't see coming, because the obvious criticism of Harley, the reliability debates, the oil leaks, the jokes from 20 years ago, that's not why it's here. Modern Milwaukee 8 engines are genuinely more reliable than the brand's old reputation deserves. That isn't the problem. The problem is the ownership math once you walk out of the showroom. Harley's dealer model runs on franchise pricing, and those dealerships aren't just selling motorcycles. They're selling apparel, accessories, riding experiences, and a lifestyle ecosystem that costs money at every touchpoint. Routine service on a Milwaukee 8 at a dealership can run several hundred to over $1,000, depending on what's due and where you live. That's not a defect, that's a business model, and it compounds quietly over years. Then there's resale. Classic Harley models, the Sportsters, Road Kings, older fat boys, hold value better than almost anything else on the used market. That part of the reputation is real. But newer touring variants and some of the more recent HD lineup editions don't carry that same magic on the trade-in lot. You may buy expecting one resale reality and discover another. Here's the honest version. The culture is real. If you want that specific community, that sound, that riding identity, no Japanese parallel twin is going to give it to you. And pretending otherwise is just arithmetic without soul. But if you're buying a Harley partly because you think it's the financially smart American choice, you should run the actual numbers before you sign. The badge is worth something. It costs something too. If you rent your own bike, ride it for 15 years, and live near a shop you trust, Harley may make perfect sense. If you trade every 2 or 3 seasons and you're calculating total ownership cost, the math gets uncomfortable fast. Great culture. Just know what you're actually paying for. Number 4, Ducati. Here's where people expect me to talk about Desmo valve service bills. And yes, depending on the model, getting the valves checked on certain Ducati platforms runs well over $1,000 at the dealer. That's documented. But it's not the real reason Ducati earns a spot here. The actual problem is geography. The US dealer network for Ducati is a fraction of what Honda, Kawasaki, or even Harley can offer. In major metro areas, you're probably fine. Get anywhere rural or move to a mid-sized city that doesn't happen to have a Ducati dealer, and scheduled service becomes a logistical project. We're talking potentially 90 miles each way. We're talking booking weeks in advance at dealers backed up with service work. We're talking peak riding months disappearing while your bike waits. And the machines themselves? Legitimately extraordinary in ways that are hard to explain until you've ridden one. The Panigale V4 is an engineering achievement that most motorcycles will never touch. The Multistrada handles more conditions more competently than almost anything at comparable money. These are not bad motorcycles. They are genuinely brilliant motorcycles built inside an ownership ecosystem that punishes anyone who doesn't live near a specific zip code. The fair comparison here is a BMW GS Adventure at similar price, and BMW's dealer footprint in the US simply isn't the same problem. You're paying Ducati-level money either way. The difference is what happens when the bike needs attention. If you're in a city with a strong Ducati dealer, love the character deeply and specifically, and have budgeted for what the ownership reality looks like. This is your motorcycle, and nobody should talk you out of it. But if you've never ridden one and you're buying the badge, wait. Rent one first, and check where your nearest authorized service center actually is before you fall in love. Number 3, Indian Motorcycle. Indian came back from the dead in 2011, made some genuinely impressive motorcycles, and told a compelling story about being the smarter, better-equipped alternative to Harley. The Challenger with the Power Plus engine earned real praise. The Scout lineup built a real following. The story worked for a while. The part nobody tells you about is the dealer network. Indian distributes through Polaris, and in a lot of U.S. markets, your Indian dealer is also selling slingshots and snowmobiles and off-road vehicles, which means the person handling your motorcycle warranty claim is working inside a multi-brand dealership, where the Indian service bay is one department among several. How specialist is that expertise? Depends entirely on the specific location you happen to live near. Harley, with all of its expensive quirks, has more U.S. dealership locations than Indian by a significant margin. That feels like a strange thing to say in Indian's defense, and as a criticism simultaneously. But there it is. If you're buying Indian partly to escape Harley's dealer culture, you could end up with fewer options, not more. Resale is another conversation worth having. Indian doesn't carry the same consistent resale strength as Harley across most segments. On some models, in some markets, you're absorbing more depreciation than the premium purchase price suggested you would. The Scout 101-based bikes are a different story. Simpler platform, strong enthusiast base, more accessible. I'd separate them from this criticism. And Indian's product has genuinely gotten better. The brand is building its infrastructure. But you're buying a motorcycle now, in a dealer market that exists now, not the one that might exist in 5 years. Great bikes. Ownership infrastructure still catching up to the product. Number 2, KTM, and everything wearing a gas or Husqvarna badge from the same roof. This one is different from everything else on this list, and you need to pay attention to it. The performance argument for KTM is legitimate. The 1290 Super Adventure R is genuinely lighter and more capable off-road than heavier European rivals. The Duke series changed what a naked bike could feel like. On the performance metrics, KTM earned its reputation. But in 2024, KTM's parent company, Pierer Mobility AG, entered documented financial distress. Insolvency proceedings were reported extensively in motorcycle trade press and European business media. Production disruptions, parts supply concerns, and dealer uncertainty followed in multiple markets. This situation was real, it was reported, and it created a specific window of ownership risk that most buyers walking into a showroom in 2025 and 2026 are not fully pricing in. Think about what you're actually buying when you put down 30% on a new KTM. You're buying the motorcycle, yes, and it's a good one. But you're also buying 5 years of parts availability, warranty backing, and dealer network continuity. And that package has a degree of uncertainty attached to it right now that a Honda or Kawasaki purchase simply doesn't carry. Parts delays during a corporate restructuring aren't hypothetical. Your bike sitting in the garage for 3 weeks during September isn't hypothetical. Warranty claim processing when distributor relationships are under pressure isn't hypothetical. If you're a serious off-road rider, you rent your own machine, and you're buying used at a price that reflects some of this uncertainty. KTM might still make sense for you. But buying new at full retail, expecting completely normal long-haul dealer support? You should be asking hard questions before you sign, and the answers should satisfy you before you hand over money. Check the current situation before making any decision. This one is evolving. Number 1, BMW Motorrad. This is the one that's going to cost you if you aren't paying attention. Because BMW Motorrad makes arguably some of the most competent motorcycles on the planet. The boxer twin in the R1250 GS is genuinely excellent. Character, longevity, capability, and an engine that serious long-distance riders talk about for legitimate reasons. The 36-month warranty is competitive. The U.S. dealer network is better than Ducati's or Indian's. The case for BMW exists, and for certain riders, it's a strong case, and that's exactly why this is number 1. Because BMW has convinced most of the motorcycle market that it represents the premium ownership choice, when for the majority of buyers, you're paying graduate school money for a degree you're never going to fully use. The R1250 GS Adventure pushes past $23,000 at current pricing. At that number, you're not just buying a motorcycle anymore. You're buying into a service dependency model that quietly follows you for years. Here's what that actually looks like. BMW's current flagship lineup. The GS series, the S1000 platforms, the RT, stacks electronic systems on top of each other. Shift cam, radar-assisted cruise, semi-active suspension, adaptive ride height. These are real technologies that genuinely work. They're also technologies that require diagnostic equipment most independent shops can't afford to maintain. which means when something goes sideways outside of warranty, and complex electronics in real-world conditions eventually do, you're at the dealer. Not because the bike failed catastrophically, but because the service ecosystem around it is designed to keep you there. Major scheduled service on a GS at a dealership can hit $800 to $1,400 depending on location and what's due. That's not abuse, that's maintenance. It's just maintenance at BMW rates, inside BMW's service infrastructure, with limited escape routes. And then compare it to the Africa Twin. Honda's Africa Twin comes in somewhere around $14,000 to $16,000 depending on trim. It doesn't have radar, the electronics are less layered, independent shops work on them without drama, and it does 90% of what the GS does for most riders who are honest about how and where they actually ride. I know what the GS faithful are already thinking, and I understand it. The Boxer has character that a parallel twin doesn't replicate. The community around long-distance GS riding is real, and it's strong. If you put massive miles on a motorcycle, if you're doing transcontinental touring, if the BMW experience is specifically what you want and you've budgeted for what it actually costs, this is your motorcycle. But if you're buying a GS because you've decided it's the best and you want the best, without calculating what ownership looks like at 5 years and 40,000 miles, you're not buying premium. You're buying a premium experience at the showroom and a gradually expensive reality afterward. Best motorcycle on the avoid list by a significant margin. And that's the whole point. So if BMW isn't worth it, KTM carries real financial uncertainty, Indian's network is thin, Harley charges you for culture, and Ducati's service ecosystem punishes anyone outside a major city. Where does your money actually go? Here's the part most riders never hear. Number 3. Worth it. Kawasaki. Kawasaki's greatest problem is that it commits the worst crime in the motorcycle market, being consistently, quietly excellent, without making you feel anything in particular about it. The brand doesn't generate Ducati passion or Harley identity. The styling is sometimes conservative. The dealerships don't feel like cultural destinations. What Kawasaki does instead is give you the most honest ownership math in the business. The Versys 650 and 1000, the Z900, the Ninja 650. These are properly engineered motorcycles at pricing that doesn't ask you to finance your personality. Service intervals are long. The dealer network is strong. Independent shops work on them without needing a specialized diagnostic interface or a training certification from an Austrian manufacturer. The Versys 1000's valve service interval is relaxed enough that ownership stays manageable for years without major intervention. You're not worried about a parts situation. You're not driving 90 miles to a dealer. You buy it, you ride it, you maintain it on a schedule that makes sense, and it keeps working. Real weakness. The top of the Kawasaki range, the H2, the H2R, is genuinely exotic and a completely different ownership proposition. And the adventure segment feels thinner than BMW or Honda's current lineup depth. If you want the bleeding edge, Kawasaki isn't there. But for most riders, boring has never been this useful. Number 2. Worth it? Honda. Yes, obviously. But stay with me, because the reason Honda belongs here isn't the one most riders think. Everyone knows Honda is reliable. That part of the reputation is earned and broadly accurate. But what most buyers undervalue about Honda is the total ownership infrastructure surrounding that reliability. The dealer network is the largest of any brand in the US. Virtually any independent shop that works on motorcycles can work on a Honda without drama, without proprietary diagnostic tools, without a 2-week booking window. The Africa Twin, the CB Series, the Goldwing, radically different motorcycles serving radically different riders, all backed by the same enormous parts network and the same accessible service reality. Resale on most Honda models is consistently strong. Warranty support comes from a company with resources that make almost every competitor look fragile. And the current lineup, particularly around the Africa Twin, genuinely competes with European adventure bikes at pricing that doesn't require a financing conversation. Honest weakness, Honda's styling and emotional character don't match what a Ducati or Harley delivers. If you buy a motorcycle partly for the feeling it gives you, and that's a legitimate reason, Honda may leave you slightly cold. The Africa Twin's electronics also trail some European competition at similar price. But as a total ownership proposition, Honda is the grown-up answer to most of the problems that landed 5 brands on the robbing list. The Africa Twin alone solves the dealer problem, the service cost problem, the parts problem, and the depreciation problem in one motorcycle for less money than a base GS. Number 1. Worth it. Royal Enfield. I know exactly what you're thinking. And that reaction, that instinct to dismiss this, is the whole reason it's number 1. The historical reputation of Royal Enfield was earned the hard way. Pre-modern Royal Enfield had real problems. Oil leaks, build quality inconsistency, vibration that stayed with you longer than the ride did. If your opinion of the brand was formed before 2015, it was formed on a different product. Here's what changed. The modern lineup, particularly the Interceptor 650 and the Continental GT 650, was designed with a technical center in the UK, engineered specifically for Western markets, and has now accumulated enough real-world owner miles and publication long-term tests to show what it actually is. Cycle World and other established motorcycle publications have put the 650 Twins through extended testing and come back with conclusions that should shift the conversation. These are not budget motorcycles disguised as real ones. They are real motorcycles priced at roughly $6,000, give or take depending on trim and current MSRP. A parallel twin with genuine character. A riding experience that experienced riders who expected to be unimpressed have walked away from surprised. Not because it beats a Multistrada or a GS, because it delivers something meaningful in exchange for money that doesn't require you to take a financial swing. At around $6,000, even if your long-term reliability experience has a rough edge somewhere, even if something needs attention at 40,000 miles that wouldn't happen on a Honda, you've saved $3,000 to $4,000 over comparable Japanese middleweight options and potentially $15,000 over a GS. That gap is a cushion. That gap buys you repairs, tires, gear, and still comes out ahead. Legitimate weaknesses. The electronics package is basic. No quick shifter, minimal rider aids on most models. The newer platforms, the Himalayan 450, the Gorilla 450, are shorter on long-term track record than the 650 Twin. The U.S. dealer network is still growing, not mature, and resale in American markets hasn't fully established itself yet. If you're near a strong Royal Enfield dealer and you're willing to let the bike prove itself over the next few years of your ownership, the 650 Twin is the most underrated buy in motorcycling right now. Not because it's the best motorcycle on this list, because the ownership equation makes almost everything else look like you're paying for someone else's marketing budget. This recommendation will get the most pushback in the comments. That's fine. The people disagreeing loudest are usually the ones who haven't ridden the 650 Twin recently and haven't compared the actual cost side by side. Here's the thing about all 8 of these brands. The showroom is designed to answer the question you're asking, which is, do I want this? The question you should be asking is, what does owning this actually cost? Not just the purchase, the service, the dealer, the parts, the resale, the years. Paying more doesn't buy you a better experience. It should. It frequently doesn't. And a brand you wrote off years ago based on a reputation that no longer reflects the actual product? That's where the value tends to hide. Which brand on this list do you think I got wrong? And which one deserves to be here that isn't?